In the beginning there were very considerable difficulties because there was no tradition of glassmaking in Dungannon or in Tyrone or indeed in Northern Ireland. So the problem was to train young people up to the disciplines of crystal industry, which meant cutting and blowing. They had built a factory at Mullaghana, quite close to Dungannon, and the next problem was to blow glass, because they intended to blow as well as cut glass. And at that stage they advertised in English magazines, and a German applied and took over the job, a German called Gert Elstner.
When I came here, it was sometime in 1971. We had one little furnace over on the far side of the building. It was a very old one and it was outdated at that time. And I was given 10 young boys for training. So when the training started, and 2 days later, Reverend Eustace came down and he asked me, when will you actually have some usable glass? So I didn't really know what to answer at that time. It's quite obvious that people here didn't know how complicated it was to get people trained. The training had to start from very, very scratch and with very, very basic things. For instance, holding a blowing irons, taking a very small gather out of the furnace. It was very, very difficult. Obviously, we also had a heat problem at that time. The furnaces are hot. People aren't used to working to the heat. They got their fingers burned and so on. It was a problem.
The whole business of making glass begins with the mixing of the ingredients. These ingredients are melted in the furnace pot. The exact proportions of the mix are a closely guarded secret. While doing this job, the operator has to wear a safety helmet. He also has to wear overalls to keep particles of dust from out of his clothes. They're made of strong paper and can only be worn once. Sand and potash are two of the most important ingredients. Lead oxide gives the mixture its bright red color. It also adds to the weight and brilliant clarity of the finished glass. When it's all mixed together, it's ready to be shoveled into the furnace at a temperature of 1400 degrees centigrade. Paul McCabe explains what it's like to do the job of a glassblower.
The safety known as a gather. It's just basically a lump of glass which has been taken out of the furnace. It's just basically getting it into a shape from which it can work from. The glass here is something in the region of 1,000 degrees centigrade. What I'm going to do now is use a paper, wet newspaper, and shape the glass from underneath using my fingers. The wet paper is a very good insulator, and in actual fact I can safely put my hand in underneath the glass without any danger of it getting burned. It's basically the same technique used for hundreds of years in glass blowing. It hasn't changed anything at all. Glass now prepared to go into the mould. I'll blow it up in the shape of the mold. There's various different shapes and sizes of molds.
A person who would make a good blower would be a person who has good judgment, can judge a thing by the eye and by the feel, The glass being molten, you use a lot of feeling in your hand, you know, to feel what actually is going on at the end of the blowing iron, what the glass is actually doing, how it's behaving, and the eye to judge. It requires good judgment. Every glass has its individual problems, and there's no two glasses exactly the same. So every glass you get is a challenge, really, until you become experienced enough to be capable of handling every problem that comes up.